And in the gospel, we see at least four things that Jesus does. First, we see that Jesus rescues. Right? The text says, the Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Jesus is saying the good news is here and it's in me. Now, this is going to shock everybody in his town. If you read the rest of the text, you're going to see they're not really happy with what he said. Isn't this Joseph's kid? Isn't this Mary's son? Like, how could he be saying he is the Messiah? Because they know what Jesus is doing. He's going to Isaiah 58 and Isaiah 61, and he's taking these Old Testament messianic prophecies about the coming Messiah, and he's saying all of this that you're expecting, all of this that you're waiting for, the rescue, the deliverance that God is going to bring, it's happening now, and it's happening with me, right? Jesus doesn't proclaim the message of deliverance. Jesus is saying, I am the message of deliverance. I am your great deliverer. And he speaks of his rescue in this comprehensive sense and scope. It's spiritual and it's physical. It's going to reach the poor and the rich. It's going to go to male and female. All throughout Luke's gospel, you start to see it starts to extend well beyond anyone's expectations. But he's reminding them that God is not far off. God has come near, right? God has come near. He sees us. He hears us. He feels compassion for us. And in the person of Jesus, he's come down to rescue us. Jesus rescues. But not only does Jesus rescue, we see that Jesus restores, right? It says he's going to restore, right? The Spirit has anointed him to do what? To proclaim good news to the poor, freedom to the prisoners, sight to the blind, and to set the oppressed free. Now, I want you to notice that Jesus is returning in Galilee. Verse 14 says that. He's returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit. Galilee in Jesus' time was known as Galilee of the Gentiles. There was this expectation that the Messiah was going to come for the Jewish people, but Jesus is already expanding their expectations. He's destroying their categories of their expectation of what God was going to do because he's showing up among the most marginalized, among those who are most rejected. He's showing up in a largely Gentile area in Galilee. Now, he's in a synagogue, but he's speaking to Jewish people and he's saying, look, God's promise, it's going to be bigger than you expect. And his hope and his restoration is going to be beyond what you can imagine. He talks of the year of Jubilee, which refers to the forgiveness of a debt. He's talking about setting those who are oppressed free. We're going to read through Luke's gospel, and you're going to see that Jesus is setting people free who've been in bondage, in spiritual bondage. He's sent me to proclaim freedom to the prisoners. There's no place in the New Testament where actually Jesus causes prison doors to be open. But he does open up the doors of death, raise people from death to new life. We think of Lazarus, we think of the widow's son. And then the New Testament, we see in the book of Acts, like God is opening up literally prison doors. But so there's this sense that like this thing, the recovery of sight to the blind, time and time again, Jesus is saying, I'm going to come and take all of the brokenness, it's wide pervasive, all the injustice, all the evil, all of that as it should not be, and I'm going to put it back together again. To proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. The year of the Lord's favor was the year of Jubilee. I'll just spend a moment here. But the year of Jubilee was the 50th year, and it was the year where everyone's debt was going to be canceled, right? If you were a slave and you owed a debt and you were an indentured servant, and the 50th year, everyone was set free. Now, according to the historical record, we're not quite sure the Israelites actually practiced this, but we know in the Old Testament it was prescribed and expected that there was the year of Jubilee, the year of the Lord's favor, where anyone who was in financial bondage or any other sort of bondage, they would be set free. It's almost like, think of student loan forgiveness, right? We've been talking about student loan forgiveness. Something got passed, but there's all these rules and stipulations. You got to be above below an income threshold. There's only up to a certain amount. You know, I have a lot of student loans actually, and so I'm kind of hopeful. I'm excited that it's going to come through, but we're still waiting. We haven't heard anything. So imagine you're someone who's sort of like swimming in debt or bondage or oppression, and Jesus is saying, "I've come to set you free." Jesus has come today, and he's come to bring rescue, and he's come to bring restoration. This is a picture of justice. Jesus rescues. Jesus restores. Third, we're going to see Jesus restrains.